Hello and welcome to Nakisa's webinar, Is Data-Driven Decision-Making the Future of HR? Nakisa is a world-class HCM and financial solutions provider headquartered in Montreal, Canada. We're very excited that you could join us today. My name is Karina and I work in the marketing department at Nakisa. I'll be your moderator today and will be facilitating questions and answers at the end of the webinar. So please don't be shy to send in your questions. Before we start today's session, we'll just go over a few navigation pointers about the GoToWebinar service. To ensure the best audio quality possible, everyone except for our panelists is muted. You may ask questions at any time during the webinar by typing them in the Questions tab located in the control panel to the right of your screen. This session is being recorded, and both the slides and the content will be made available to you after the webinar session has closed. Now I'd like to introduce the team. Speaking on the panel today are Jody Marner and Raghi Pandya. Jody is the Global Director of Business Solutions, HCM, here at Nakisa. With more than 22 years of experience working in strategic human resources leadership roles, Jody offers subject matter expertise on merger and acquisition integration, divestitures, compensation, recruiting, and partnering with the business to drive the strategy forward using proactive talent strategies. Raghi is the Global Director and HCM Evangelist here at Nakisa. He's been involved extensively in the HCM space for over 15 years and works closely with many organizations worldwide to build sustainable HR strategies and continually develop new innovations. Please note that you can find us on Twitter at Nakisa Inc., and we encourage you to tweet during today's webinar using hashtag NakisaHCM. So we have a packed schedule for you today. Starting off, Jody will talk about how businesses are in need of an integrated solution that facilitates and accelerates organizational transformation initiatives, enabling smarter and faster decision-making based on accurate information. Afterwards, Raghi will demo HANELLY and show how the solution accelerates transformation processes and enables businesses to transition away from time-consuming administrative functions that rely heavily on spreadsheets, slides, and manual data entry. So let's get started. Over to you, Jody.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. So today we are going to be talking about, is data-driven decision-making the future of HR? And I think everyone here on the call realizes, yes, it is. We need to figure out as an HR group how to stop chasing data and start using it to be a true partner with the business. Without data, HR doesn't have a voice at the table. We don't have the credibility, we don't have the ability to change the conversation. And we have to stop just thinking about things like span control, attrition, layers, and saying, so what does that mean to us and what does that mean to the business? Today we're going to talk about how to be a credible activist with your business. With access to real-time data, accurate data, easy to access data, and easy to manipulate and have unchallengeable data, we will be brought to the bigger decisions, strategic decisions the business needs to make. We will be able to change the conversation from not what is this data telling us, we will be able to change the conversation to what is this data telling us, rather than where did this data come from? Is it accurate? Is it up to date? With accurate and real-time data, HR professionals can confidently present recommendations and use predictive analytics, trending, and metrics that align to the business strategy to prove the need for this data to move the strategy forward. So how do we make this our current reality? Just imagine, if you could, a time when you had immediate access to HR data from your HRIS in a single point of truth. Imagine that data was real time, it was accurate, it was relevant, and it was up to date. Imagine having data, raw ERP data, that you could turn into meaningful business information. All this through a simple, business-friendly tool designed for non-ERP experts. Imagine having this data that computes your workforce, your talent, your organizational design metrics automatically. You can filter, slice, dice, and analyze this data using multiple methods and approaches. Not as well, what you can do is create dashboards, have advanced data visualizations to see targets, to see how you're doing against those targets, to watch real progress happen at the click of a button. This replaces how we do things today. Excel, PowerPoint, Visio, downloading data, static data, data that's out of date by 2 weeks, potentially even a quarter. And it also allows us in this new system to design for collaboration and help HR get feedback immediately to support the processes that we have to do. So the question we have is, can you trust your data today? In our current reality, with how we play with data, it's stored in disparate systems, it's difficult to get, it's difficult to analyze. We're using Excel and pivot tables. We have the potential of human error. All of that causing us to really question the data. So imagine in a new reality, you had centralized data from multiple sources, all in one source of truth. Imagine this data was automatically audited and the areas that needed cleaning up were flagged for you, so you knew before you even ran a report what needed to be done. As well, this data can be accessible by multiple users. So at a single click of a button, 3 people will get the exact same answer from this source. The next issue that we have is, do you know the current state of your organization? In most organizations, they don't have an accurate view of the state today, the current state, and I'm talking about today. A lot of times we're looking at the view of our organization from the past. And again, it can be 2 weeks and it can be a quarter back, depending on how difficult it is to get that data. As well, the baseline is usually out of date and you're constantly challenged by, well, hang on, when was this headcount number pulled? What has happened in the past month since you pulled that number? And really, without having the access to the real-time data, you're running around trying to figure out the deltas to be able to have a story to share with the business. So in a new reality, and when we talk about what we can provide, the data is dynamic and always up to date. It's immediate. So when you push that button, you see what is happening today. And it's pulled directly from your ERP, directly from your HRIS data. So everybody is getting the same data at the same time. Another question we constantly hear is, do you know what your data looks like? So today, the questions regarding headcount, span of control, layers, gender or diversity metrics, they are a huge pain point for most professionals. Again, it's that Excel spreadsheet manipulation, it's that inability to have access to current data, and again, it's trying to carve the data in a way that the business wants. I'm sure many of us have had those questions where the business has said, yes, okay, you've told me how many women there are in the organization, but how many women officers are there in the organization? And back to the pivot table you go. There's multiple tools used to derive this metric in static form. And because of that, you have human error and you have the ability, not the ability, but you have the problem of having multiple answers for the single question. And when this happens, what the conversation turns into is challenging your data rather than what are you going to do with the data. If you can say this data is real time, it's connected directly to all data sources, it's dynamically updated, and your reports and your dashboards are up to date, and it's your single source of truth, you can change that conversation again from not how did you get these numbers and are these numbers accurate to let's use these numbers to help move our strategy forward. And then the final thing that we hear a lot about, or we keeps us awake at night, is having control over this data. So whenever we're asked to report on our organizational model, or we're asked to even do some modeling for some options or future scenarios for the business, it causes huge amounts of work for HR professionals. We have to use multiple software solutions. We can be using Excel, we could be using PowerPoint, Visio. A lot of this information needs to be taken out of the ERP and put into some other kind of solution. Incredibly time consuming. A lot of us probably have a whole group of people that their whole job is just to pull reports and put it into an Excel spreadsheet that we can start playing with. It also forces compromises and it limits the opportunities or the ability to come up with different ideas, new recommendations, switch and turn with the business as they're coming up with a new strategy. Because again, we have to constantly be going back and getting new data and trying it over again. And as I said earlier, that causes a lot of opportunity for error. So in the new reality that we want to talk to you about is you can visualize your environment, again, right in front of you, right in a click of a button. You can see by moving people or positions or layers around the impact that that has on your metrics, and the impact is immediate. So if you don't like it, you switch it back. You can come up with multiple opportunities or multiple scenarios and have decision points on, if we do this, here's how it's going to impact the data. And then the best thing is once you've had the decision made, it's an automatic write back into your ERP. There is no need for manual, time-consuming entry. So where does this impact HR? So from an HR perspective, what I wanted to do was just talk a little bit about one of our major areas that we work a lot on, and that is in reorganizations. So if you think about the new reality that we just outlined, think about baselining. So before you even do a reorg or before you do any kind of organizational redesign, you need to make sure that the data you have is up to date, current, there's no mistakes in it. Today, that takes a lot of time. In fact, when we're looking at a reorg, we put a lot of the project time at the front end to make sure that the data is accurate. And there's a number of people involved in that scenario. With our solution, with Hanley, that baselining is done automatically. That baselining is put back into the hands of the people that own the data. There's no need for making sure that your data is up to date and spending those weeks getting it ready to do the analysis. And because of that, it allows you to get right into the analytic stage. So rather than spending your time making sure the data is correct, you're looking at the data and saying, what is this telling us? What are we going to do with this data? What are the opportunities that we have? How are we going to design the organization to hit our ROI targets? How are we going to make sure that we've got the right span of control? We've got the right layers in the organization. We're meeting our diversity metrics. It's done at a click of a button, and it offers the HR professional the opportunity to be able to share multiple scenarios with decision makers, and again, changing the conversation from, is this data accurate, or is this data, how out of date is this data, to what are we going to do with it, and what is the proper scenario to really drive our business strategy forward. It allows you to focus on execution excellence. You're taking out the human error. You're confidently sharing models that you know have accurate data in them and are completely up to date. You're getting that immediate feedback and able to pop in and out of your analyze, design, and execution phase very quickly and easily. And then with the write back to the ERP, your focus can be all about how are we going to manage the change in the organization? How are we going to help people become more productive? So you can see by having control and having access to real-time data, one area of HR, which is very critical, our reorganizations, are highly, highly impacted. As well, imagine having a dashboard that you can show on an ongoing basis, weekly, daily, monthly, whatever the business wants, to see how the progression towards the ROIs are going. So you may come up with a design, you may implement it, you can execute on it, and you're not hitting your ROI targets. With Hanley, you can go back and do this again very easily, very quickly, course correct before you have that lag measure that it's almost too late. So when do we use reorg opportunities? We do it when we have to do a strategy change. The business has come forward, they say that they want to change from being a decentralized model to a centralized model, and they want to understand where would the synergies be. With Hanelly, you can quickly and easily put a new organizational model together and immediately see the data impacts. You're looking at your numbers to say, what is our opportunity for getting rid of duplications, creating efficiencies, driving our layers to be more at the decision-making point, so lower, smaller layers, if you would. We'd also use it if there's a business model change. The company decides they don't want to be product-focused anymore and they want to be more customer-centric. In this scenario, you're talking about completely changing a work function. So what you want to understand is, what is that impact on our talent? What is that impact on our number of people we have doing different roles? You can look at the skill sets that people have and say, well, where's our gap now if we're moving away from being product focused to being customer focused? Do we have the right people doing the right roles at the right time? And again, with the dashboarding metrics, you can create phased approaches and see your progress immediately. Another opportunity could be market pressures. The market is demanding you to get out to the market faster. They want the product sooner. They want to have more bells and whistles on the product. These type of pressures, then you need to increase productivity. You need to get people more engaged and collaborative in your workplace. With Hanley, people have the ability to access who are decision makers, who have the knowledge, and they can look into the data and look at how far down in the hierarchy is this person. How many people does this person have reporting to them? They can create virtual teams by getting a very diverse group of people together to talk about what are these market pressures and what do they mean to our company. So again, this access to the information, to the data, it takes the conversation for an HR professional away from, is your data correct? Do you really understand who our talent is? Do you understand what they're bringing to the table? To how do we move this quickly? How do we change what we're doing? Another one that is really great with our tool Hanley is looking at your talent vulnerabilities and your talent gaps. By looking at your data and using your data with Hanley, it tells you a story. It can tell you a story about how many people are going to be retiring in the next 6 months. It can tell you a story about how many people of what generation are leaving the company and why. It takes away the numbers, what's my percentage of attrition, to what's really happening in the organization and how do I action that? How do I figure out the why? So as an HR professional, I'm coming up with a strategic solution. So to recap, Hanley, from an organizational transformation perspective, addresses critical steps. It improves the accuracy of your decisions. It increases the speed of allowing your transformation to occur. It gives you strategic collaboration and communication of the change through one single platform, so everybody's getting the same information and the same view. It reduces judgment errors, and it allows you to, rather than talk about is the data correct, talk about how your recommendation is really going to drive the strategy forward. It saves time, huge amounts of time, and I know as an HR professional myself, the amount of time that is put into getting the data just to be able to have a conversation at the business table is incredibly time consuming and very painful. Hanley takes that away, and it takes away auditing the data. It takes away questioning the data. It also accelerates the speed of creating organizational models. Again, it allows you to try and test, even implement and go back and redo at the click of a button, and it allows you to measure how you're doing against your ROI, against the strategy, against the organizational transformation initiative. So let me tell you a little bit more about Nakisa and the Hanley value proposition. Traditionally in the past, when we've talked about organizational transformation, we look at what's the strategy, what's the business strategy, where are we going, and what are the processes that we need to put into place to get there. Technology has been sitting out in the wings, and it has not been a considerable platform for us to be able to use. Today with HANELLY, we're bringing technology into these pillars of innovation. With HANELLY, it complements core HR solutions. It aligns your talent, it identifies and isolates and provides clarity on your talent realities. So what are my talent gaps? What are my vulnerabilities? In what scenario may I lose people, or may I have some redundancies if I make some changes? It simplifies your processes. It takes away that administrative burden and allows you to be talking about predictive analytics and talking about trending and talking about where the market is going and how our organization needs to flux and change to keep up with that. And because as an HR professional, you're allowed to give these type of recommendations and you're confident in the information, it accelerates the decision making. It gives the business confidence to say, yes, we know what we're doing, we know who we have, we know where our talent is and is not. So therefore, let's collaborate and streamline and create this organizational change and help people see it in a singular view. So what is Hanley? Hanley is a powerful solution that complements core HR solutions and ERP for human capital management. So it sits on top of your ERP. It sits on top of multiple ERPs. It can pull data from disparate locations and bring it into one source of truth. So you're working with one application on all of your talent. It allows you to do large-scale reorganizations by taking data from different areas of the business, or even it would allow you to do an integration if you had an acquisition where you can take data from two different companies and pull them together and visualize this new organization to understand who do we need doing what and why, and where do we need to start sharing talent across the different organizations. It gives you multiple data analytics, so it shows you the critical organization metrics that you use to show the success of your transformation, whether that be a small reorg right through to a huge merger or acquisition. It gives you the ability to visualize the data and the relationship structures so that employees can understand and leaders can understand where they fit in the organization, and understand and analyze the data to see where their opportunities are. The best part, it's got a fully guided write back process. So once you've come up with your new organization, whether that again be a reorg or an integration, you can write back to your ERP and take away human error and the amount of administration that manual process takes today. You can also you can securely collaborate with your colleagues and create scenarios to solve strategic HR planning issues. I don't know how many of us have gone through a reorg and all of a sudden we see all of these major issues popping up on we forgot to assign a piece of work to somebody, or we've duplicated work assignments. By collaborating, by this ease of sharing what you're planning, your issues come forward immediately and you can fix them. You don't have to wait until the ball is rolling and people are in the new world to say, well, hang on, why are two of us doing the same job? Or hang on, who's doing this? And a ball is dropped. So how is Hanley set up? Hanley has been positioned very flexibly for HR professionals to use different areas of the solution based on their business strategy. So we have org charting, allows you to visualize and collaborate with employees, show career paths, show different areas in the organization so people understand who owns what. We have the analytics that we've talked about, the data. At a touch of a button, you can see so many metrics and compare and contrast the organizational information immediately and share that with your business. We have organizational auditing. It improves the quality of data. It clearly identifies errors in your ERP, flags them for you, allows you to give the correction of those errors to the appropriate people, and then the write back changes right back into the HRIS solution. It has team designing. It gives the power to your business leaders to effectively organize their team to meet their business goals. They can model, create unit scenarios. They can define KPIs and targets for their business unit, dashboard them, measure against them. It also allows them to consult business unit specific dashboards. We also have org design. Now this is for your large scale organizational redesign. So in this area, this is where the HR professionals will play. This allows you to delegate down to key leaders to model and create organizational scenarios, roll it back up and see the full impact to the company. It gives you the ability to set a KPI and a target that is company-wide, but then manipulate the different areas to hit that target. So you may want to be giving one business a 40% target of reduction and another part of the business a 10% reduction because it's actually going to be a growth play. And it does that by putting a dashboard together and showing you the analytics in real time. The final area that we have is our merger, acquisition, and divestiture area. This allows you to take information from two different companies, normalize that data, so making sure that you have the right jobs aligned to the right jobs and in the right work functions. It allows you to manipulate the data in such a way that you can either move people from one organization to another, Or you can green space it. You can start with a blank slate and create a whole new organization based on the strategy of that acquisition or merger or even your divestiture play. Again, it allows you then, once you've made the decisions and share it with multiple users, you can share it with leaders in both sides of both companies. And once you've done that, then you can easily write it back. The merger and acquisition module also gives you the ability to put people into a holding area, if you would, to say, what are we going to do with these people? Are we going to carve out a new work function? Are we going to look at a potential divestiture of a specific area of our business? And it gives you that time to really make sure that you've got the high potential talents in the critical roles, you've got your critical resources lined up, and then bring people back into your organizational scenario to make sure that nobody is missed. So again, all in all, Hanley is a very flexible, user-friendly tool that takes a lot of the pain that HR deals with day to day in data analytics, in modeling, in integration, even something as simple as, can I see who's in my organization, and makes it real time and easily accessible and easy to use. So if you think about where we're moving from an HR perspective, we started thinking about engagement and collaboration probably about a couple of years ago. I think that was the buzzwords, making sure that people understood who did what and how do they get involved. How do they be a part of a new team? How do they get involved in the new trendy projects? To then looking at, hang on, how do we manage our organization so that we're not always going to the same people over and over again? To now looking at, how are we transforming our organization in such a way that we're driving efficiencies, we're driving productivity, we're getting very focused and specific on our strategy, we're moving at the speed of the market, and we're able to respond to what the business needs and be a true partner at the table. So, key takeaways. Hanley, it gives you a clear understanding of your current real-time reality. It uses deep dive analysis tools to find your gaps and your vulnerabilities. It allows you to align and target transformations. You can model, collaborate, use what-if scenarios, share with multiple users, stakeholders, review and collaborate to get those models approved, and then commit it back to your ERP in an end-to-end HCM integration. It is a tool that is going to change the face of how HR professionals work. So from here, I would like to pass on this presentation so that you can see a demonstration of our tool. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jody. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Raghi Pandya. I'm the Global Director and HCM Evangelist here at Nakisa. So at this point, we're going to start talking about some practical applications about how Hanley can assist in this process of understanding and trusting your ERP system and its data. So to do that, I'm going to jump into the tool and show some real-life examples of how it can be used and leveraged. So to start with, the first question that comes to play, of course, is, can you trust your data? This is a multifaceted question. You have data coming from multiple sources. One of the most difficult things to do for a lot of organizations is to aggregate that data together. And that's really one of Hanelly's strengths. Hanley is a great tool to allow you to bring data from multiple places, multiple sources, and present it together in one combined, seamless, business-oriented solution. So just as a quick example, you can look at organization structures. You can actually drill into much, much more detail. So if I were going to look at some detail about a particular organizational structure or a position or a person, all of this data can be coming from different sources. So many times you have your primary ERP system, which has got some of your HR master data. Talent is coming from some third-party sources on the cloud, for example. These hybrid environments are really quite popular now, and one of the biggest struggles is combining that data together. Financial data, talent data, skills data, whatever the case may be, all of this in many cases comes from different sources of data. The other piece that becomes a very difficult exercise to try and solve is to trust that data. So one of the other things Hanley does extremely well is to allow you to both look at things like headcount, span of control, where you can really quickly see, Is this the actual number of people within my organization? Do I really have 178 people in my research and development group? And then even more specifically, there are some functionality designed around validating the data. So things like business rules that you can run and say, okay, during an exercise, how many manager positions are empty? How many positions are there jobs without people assigned? So these are data anomalies that you can then find and track using Hanley as well. So very, very easy to use, very accessible. The other struggle, of course, is making this data available to everyone. So in Hanley, because we're really just a web-based tool, everyone can access the system, navigate throughout the structure, look at data in basically real time. So as I'm navigating around and looking up information, I'm actually hitting the ERP system. So that means that what you're looking at is literally what you have in your ERP. Now, it isn't quite real time down to the second, but it can be very, very close within a minute or two in terms of updates. And at the end of the day, Hanley becomes the window into your source of truth. There's a lot of talk about single source of truth and what it means, and of course that's a very difficult thing to have, where it's one place where everything is being displayed. And of course with Hanley, we're not trying to cover every aspect of an HR system, but what we are trying to do is provide a very broad-reaching approach to information and data that your business users can use to manage their HR structures. So that's the beginning one, is trust your data. The second one is understanding the current state. And this is really, another great strength of Hanley, is being able to understand what you have. So whether I'm looking at my research and development organization, I can drill into more detail into hardware design. I can look at teams very, very easily and quickly. So I'm opening up my hardware design green team, and I can view that against my orange team. Most organizations, they don't have an accurate view of this because it's very difficult to understand the underlying ERP system and the data behind it. Sometimes it can be extremely difficult to understand where you are, where do people sit, and what does that structure actually look like. So a lot of times, even before you start a transformation exercise, the baselining exercise takes a while. Getting this data out of your ERP in a way that's presentable, it's easily understandable for your regular employees. This is always a struggle. There's a lot of systems available to visualize or to even show this data, but they're not designed around business users. Typically these things tend to be HR focused, lots of jargon, lots of terms. Average business user would have no idea what to do with those types of tools. And that's really counterintuitive as far as we're concerned. Hanley is designed for business in any sort of way. So, knowing the current state of your organization. One of the other struggles, of course, is as the data is, in this case, it's being uploaded or changed, the data is always up to date. What you're trying to look for here is data that's live, data that's coming from the ERP system that's automatically being kept up to date. And that's really what, once again, Hanley does best. So you can navigate through multiple chart structures. You can move anywhere within the organization. It's very easy to use to kind of search around and look. You can navigate into structures. You can do quick searches as well. So if you're looking for any individual or anything really, you can very powerful tool to look up information. So let's do a developer or something like that. So if I'm looking for developers, I can type in the word developer. I'll get a list of people who have developer in their job title or potentially a skill called developer. I can even go into much, much more detail and bring up the full list of information. So these are all my developer positions or employees, and then I can filter within there as well. Show me the ones that are only male or female. Show me the ones fitting within a certain org unit layer, performance, whatever the case may be. So very powerful tool for understanding your current structure and the people within your organization. Next stage. Understanding what your data looks like. Classic examples, of course, of things like headcount, span of control, number of layers. These are things that most organizations struggle a little bit with in terms of having a grasp on. Now, of course, there are a lot of analytic solutions out there that extract data out and then present this in a report type format. Hanley works in a slightly different way. Once again, Hanley is designed to be a real-time system where the analytics are embedded in everything that you do. So the types of processes that you do in Hanley, the analytics are already there. It doesn't require an extraction. It doesn't require an extra step. It doesn't have 1 day, 2 day, or 1 week old data. You're looking at live data as you're going through that process. So right now I've actually got some of the data enabled, span of control, the overall salary. So maybe let's look at something like a head count, and then even the depth of the organization. How deep do I go? And these are, very adjustable, very flexible analytics that you can use directly within the tool. On top of that, in real time, you can start slicing and dicing as well. So I'll open the filter panel, and I can focus just on show me only the critical resources within my organization. And what that will do is actually filter out the numbers as we're looking at. So I can see most of my critical resources are kind of mixed between my human resources, some in R&D, some in information technology, and I can get even more specific. Show me critical resources who are between the age of 60 to 69. Suddenly I've done an analysis where, potentially these are people who are going to leave the organization, and they are critical. I wonder if they have a good backup plan or succession plan for these individuals. So Hanley makes that kind of analysis incredibly simple and incredibly easy to use. A lot of times, this is done through multiple tools. So then the tool that you use to analyze is different than the tool that you use to kind of present the information. PowerPoint is combined, and Excel spreadsheets. All of these different tools are combined to try and simulate this kind of functionality. And in Hanley, it's all automatic. It's all part of the tool. And that can apply both to the chart-related analytics. In fact, I can get even deeper. I'm going to go into my research and development group here and bring up some of our talent analytics. These are all, once again, being calculated in real time on that organization. So now I'm looking at some advanced demographic and talent analytics, org unit layer by pay grade, risk of loss versus performance, age and gender distributions, job-related distributions, job family distributions, and all of this filterable as well. So critical resources. So show me only people within my organization who are super high performance, who happen to fit within, let's say, one of my job families. And in fact, I can even do the filtering directly from the chart. So I clicked on research and development here, and now I'm looking at a small pool of people, approximately 8 or so, people who are research and development and top performance. And I can actually get a list of those people, to kind of view, navigate, understand who they are and where they sit. I can go from there. I can actually bring up the individuals, potentially pin them side by side. So let's grab Tia, and maybe let's grab Tammy, and I can put them side by side and go to a 2-pane view here. If I got Tammy on one side and Tia on the other, I can even add them to a compare. So let's put Tammy into the compare, and let's put Tia into a compare function. And now we're comparing across these two individuals to look for skills, whatever the case may be. So very, very, very powerful tool for understanding what your data looks like. So real-time dashboards, data, slice and dice, all of this is part of what Hanley offers. And in fact, we go even one step further than that. And let me jump back into my chart for a second here. And we can even show very advanced analytics. So I'm going to go back to a single pane view and open up what we call our organizational overview, where now we're looking top down across the organization. So very, very powerful tool for being able to understand and visualize. Nakisa demo structure, 100% of my headcount. Finance, 12.5%. Human resources, 12%. I can dig into research and development, which is about 9.5%. 4.5% of that is in software. 1% is in quality. 1% hardware design, and I can drill into detail here and get as detailed as as I want, and then drill back up again as well. And at any point in time, let's say I'm looking at my sales and marketing group, or I'm looking at my research and development group, I can then just jump directly into research and development to the org unit. So very easy, very powerful way to understand what your data looks like. Next step, of course, is once you've seen the data and you've worked with it, the next thing you really want to do is to be able to transform. And with Hanley, we have a couple of different ways to handle transformation. So the easiest one, and I'll start with the easiest one and work up to the more difficult one, is to do what we call a team design or a project chart. So if I'm logged in as an individual who's allowed to create a project chart, I can do that here. So let me just click on here. And I can create a scenario from here very, very quickly and easily. If I want to do a more complicated chart, I can actually jump into what's called my scenarios, and I can create new modeling scenarios. So very straightforward step. I've already got some already in progress. I've got a planning scenario that I've already created. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this one. So this is an overall plan for 2017. It's across the board that's been created. It gives you the ability to plan based on the entire company structure. So right now I can see I've got my whole structure in here. Let me jump into the chart. So all of this is within my 2017 plan. So I've got the different business units. All of this is available for planning exercises. But then what you can do with the tool is start segmenting out and assigning this to sub people. So this is very powerful. So even though I'm doing a budget plan for the overall organization, I can say, Elizabeth, you're going to take over the human resources group, and I'm going to assign you your area of responsibility. And this is great because then she can focus on her, area because she knows it best. I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. And if I go back to my planning tab here, I can see I've got some of my subunits already assigned. So Mark Johnson has set up, I think it's Christopher Peck here, who's going to be in charge of the different groups. The different hardware engineering is going to be under Alexandra. Human resources is going to be under Elizabeth. And then finally the R&D group here is going to be under Sarah. What I've also done in this scenario is actually set up some targets. So targets are very interesting. So if you remember, you start with your span of control and your headcount targets. You can then specify that during a modeling exercise, these are the objectives you're trying to achieve. So I've got some global targets that have been set at the very top level. So on span of control, we want to specify as a corporate standard that our span of control falls between 5 and 11. Depth of the organization, starting at the top level, so about 7 levels deep is the max. Budget, we're looking in this model, because this is a planning exercise, to increase budget by a certain percentage, between 5 and 7%. And the overall headcount, we're trying to increase by a fixed number. And then when you come into the actual model itself, you can then change these objectives. So for any individual region, for example, for hardware engineering under Alexandre, I can see the original headcount here is 195. Doesn't make a lot of sense because right now his current headcount is 32. So let's give him a little bit of room to work with. So let's say maybe 35 to 40 is what we're hoping to get out of this group. So we're refining those targets for him. Same thing for depth, span of control. This is his overall budget. Now, once any one of these other individuals logs into the scenario, so if Sarah comes in and loads this scenario, what she will see is her area of responsibility, and she'll be able to compare that with her targets. So she can come back in here, come back to the planning exercise, and she would see where she is compared to her overall targets. And then from there, she can actually start the modeling. So modeling is very straightforward, just like doing anything in PowerPoint, straight drag and drop. So I can create new orgs, I can create new positions. So create a new org unit, so let's create a new innovation org unit. Under that innovation org unit, I'm going to go ahead and maybe create a new position. So all of this based on the data model that you're using. So let's make it a team lead for innovation. Very easy and powerful. Then I'm actually going to edit that position, add some other attributes to it as well. So things like manager flags, whatever the case may be, all of those can be added to the tool. Maybe we'll just show an example here. You can edit existing ones as well. So things like position name, description, cost center, controlling area, even job assignment is here as well. So dynamically be able to pick the job that's appropriate for them, specifying its key position, group, employee groups and subgroups, all of this coming from your ERP system. Very, very, very easy to use. And then when it comes to assignment, very straightforward. If I want to move the hardware or software engineer from one group to another, it's just straightforward and drag and drop. So right away I can see the impact on, let's go headcount, salary, and depth or something like that. So I can drag people from one group to another. I can actually drag people from one position to another. So Miles is currently sharing the senior VP position, but I'm going to put him in charge of the team lead. So now, impact here as well. So very, very powerful way of being able to combine the organization structure. So create, move, delimit, all of this is possible through Hanley. From this point, you can have all the people working within their area of responsibility. Once they feel that they're finished, they can go ahead and start the finalization process. And that finalization process will cover all of the different areas. Once the scenario has been finalized, they can then work through its approval process. So, people may be assigned to approve this particular scenario. So nothing ever gets committed back to the ERP system without going through that approval process. And that's very, very important. Even though we're working offline, this model can then be committed back into your ERP system. And that's really one of the most important and most powerful things about Hanley. It lets you work in a completely offline scratch pad, but then you can apply all of those changes back into your scenario. So just to summarize, all the very labor-intensive, difficult things you have to do normally to handle a transformation or a reorganization, to get control over your data, Hanley does that for you automatically. So your users can then focus on the business requirements instead of worrying about the little technical nitty-gritties of tools and processes that they have to support. Hanley makes all of that much, much easier. So hopefully you've just gotten a good taste of what Hanley is capable of. Of course, as a tool, there's multitudes of functionality in here that I didn't get a chance to show, and of course we invite you to check out our website for more in-depth demonstrations. So with that, I'll hand things back and probably back to Karina to take some questions.
Thank you, Jody and Raggy, for that very informative session. And now Raggy will take a few questions that we've received during the session. So our first question, what is the baseline?
Okay, what is a baseline? Good question. That comes up quite a bit. It is sort of a generic term that represents the current state of your organization. As we had talked about, I think before, baselining means figuring out where you are right now. And that can be both from a sort of organizational headcount, span of control perspective. It can also kind of represent, demographic breakdown. It can even be at the data level as well. So when we see by baselining is making sure you have all of the elements that you need in order to support the processes that you're going to use. Like anything, baselining can mean a lot of different things, but in, kind of Nakisa Hanley terms, baselining means understanding where you are right now.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, what are predictive analytics?
Okay, interesting question. Yeah, we do talk about analytics quite a bit. So there is, in the world of analytics, it's sort of think of it as a Maslow's hierarchy of needs in terms of complexity. When you start at the very bottom level, analytics can be purely sort of reporting. They're describing the current state of information. So those are the kind of very straightforward analytics where you can gather based on where you are right now. Headcounts and budgets tell you current state. Then you get to more complex analytics where you're looking at trends over time. So these analytics, kind of based on historicals, based on what's happened in the past, you can make examinations and counts that look at historical trends. We're going up by 5%. Headcount is increasing by 10%, whatever the case may be. The next stage after those historical ones comes to ones where you're trying to predict what the analytic will be. So if I know over the last X number of years, based on a couple of factors, my headcount has gone up between 3 and 5% based on a set of criteria, can I predict what my headcount will be? Or even the other way around, can I predict what my loss will be from employees departing from the organization? So that's a predictive analytic. So predictive analytic is one of the most complex kinds of analytics, where you're looking at both trends and then multiple criteria to try and predict what an analytic value will be in the future.
Okay. And our next question, how is historical data viewed? If I want to see the state of the business from 2 quarters ago, is that possible?
So yes, in Hanley it is. In fact, it's really straightforward. In Hanley we call that a kind of effective dating or key dating. So it's one of the functions of Hanley's modeling scenario, where you can take any given business unit or the entire company or whatever it is that you're looking at, and you can move the date forward and backwards. So if you want to look at the company that it was 2 months ago, 2 quarters ago, 2 years ago, you can view it by kind of going back in time. You can also then put those side by side. What does it look like before versus where it is now? And then you can get it even to more advanced things where as I talked about, looking at trends. Where did we start and where are we now? What's the delta between 2 quarters ago and now? So all of that is possible in Hanley using a couple of different functions within the tool.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. So our next question is, Other departments are still using Excel in combined reports. Is it possible to extract information from your solution into Excel?
So yeah, the general answer to that question is yes, of course. We kind of want everyone to use Hanley for the bulk of the business processes that Hanley supports, but we realize a lot of clients, to support those processes, they still need access to Excel. So Hanley supports Excel in both directions. And what I mean by that is you can bring data from Excel, raw data, into Hanley, and then vice versa, you can take massaged or filtered or transformed data out of Hanley back into Excel. So both those mechanisms are supported. And depending on what you're trying to do, you can leverage that functionality to do some very interesting in and out type of transformations.
All right, and our last question. Is it possible to also visualize talent or organizational vulnerabilities if you're already visualizing multidisciplinary talent data?
Yeah, okay, that's a very good, a very good question. So generally speaking, yes. Once again, multiple tabs, multiple bits of information. One of the things we struggle with as a solution provider is how much logic do you want to build into the tool. So if you think about our talent and organizational vulnerability capability, being able to look for places where you may have problems with people who may be leaving, critical resources that are sort of at the retirement age, where are you vulnerable within the organization? So that's one question, and then combining that with looking at raw data, looking at talent data, looking at the percentages or whatever the case may be. So we offer some functionality automatically to do that. But then, of course, in the future, this is something that we're spending a lot of time and effort in being able to kind of help within that particular process.
Thank you so much, Raggy, once again. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. We will be responding to all your unanswered questions in the coming days. If you have any more questions, please feel free to email us at nakisa@nakisa.com. Before closing off today, I'd like to inform you that we will be sending you a follow-up email with links to our various resources we have available to you, such as our dedicated pre-sales team with whom you can book a personalized product demonstration, our resources page which offers rich information through thought leadership articles, white papers, solution overviews, etc., our social media channels to keep up to date with the latest news and events, and our YouTube channel for short demo videos on our solutions, as well as past webinars. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your time and attention. We will now close the session.